Hey everyone, it's Gabby. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Today's story is one that it was traumatic, and I debated whether I should tell it or not because at the time it was just a lot, and honestly I worried that if I said something about what happened to me that these people could come after me and or put me in danger. So, you know, I thought about it, and it's been about 3.5 years since this happened, and I learned my lesson, and I hope that no one has to go through what I went through, but I do realize that a lot of people will fall for what I fell for, and I'm going to tell this story so that anyone who watches this realizes that what I fell for was a scam, and you don't fall for this scam too, because it's not a fun time. And what happened to me was, you know, way out of left field like this, you know, very honestly, like the chances of this happening to me were probably 1 in a million or something, but they did. You know, this did happen. And if you think I'm making this up, especially because I will be referring to notes on my iPad because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. If you think I made this up, you know, go ahead, think that I made this up, but I'm telling you that this did happen to me. This is my truth, and I'm sharing it so that no one else has to go through this. I've got my chai ready in my insulated mug, and let's do this. So, after I graduated from college, I had gotten my bachelor's degree in songwriting and composition and a minor in music business, so obviously I wanted to work in the music industry. I currently work in the music industry. But when I had just graduated, I was thinking, okay, so in order to make it as an artist, I need to have something on the side that can make me more reliable income while I, you know, make my way into the music scene and start booking more consistent gigs and start, you know, booking writing sessions and, you know, work on getting my songs, getting sync placements, and, you know, all these things that are involved in the music industry. So I was looking for something to basically sustain me while I was, you know, working on all of this. Because the thing about the music industry is that, you know, you're not going to make money immediately. Like, you don't just suddenly, you know, overnight become a millionaire. That's not how it works at all. So I was looking for jobs, and I made a previous story time about how my coworker almost fought me at work. So that was the first job I held right outside of, like, as soon as I finished college. I had a couple of months, looked for some jobs, and I worked at a dog ranch, like boarding facility, for a few months. And once I realized that this was a very toxic environment, minus the dogs were amazing. I loved the dogs. Dogs are angels. But once I realized, there's my angel right there. But once I realized that the people were not great, I thought, okay, I need to look for something else. So I went on LinkedIn, I went on ZipRecruiter, I went on all these job website places. LinkedIn is my personal favorite, and I also had to make a LinkedIn account in college. So I went on there and I just started typing in words like marketing, public relations, artist management, you know, things like that. And because I live in the Bay Area, obviously I wasn't going to find too many things in the actual music industry, but I was thinking, you know, if I can find like an entry-level marketing job, I can get experience in marketing while still working on my own things, but, you know, getting an idea of how this part of the industry works. So I found a job listing on LinkedIn for an entry-level marketing job. And all right, I'm going to get my notes out now because I have a lot to say about this. This job listing had a ton of keywords and very appealing language that made someone young and naive like me fall for it. So basically they were like, we're hiring now, we're looking for, you know, recent high school and college graduates looking for experience in marketing. And they said, you will be trained in advertising, marketing, public relations, and management. And so I should have seen that as a red flag, because it's like, okay, so if you're going to apply for an entry-level job, it's going to be specific. Like, it's not just going to be like, you get to do all these things. Like, no, you're going to be in advertising or in public relations. But like, and I mean, obviously you're gonna like learn bits and pieces, but it's like, they were basically saying like it was a, you know, buffet that you can just pick from. And I was like, But at the time, you know, I thought, awesome, I'm gonna get experience in all of these different parts and this is gonna help me so much as a musician. So I applied and I got a response the same day. They called me and we basically did like a phone interview, and it was very simple. I wasn't alarmed at all. Like, I just thought like, whoa, like these people are really looking for people, like cool. And so they asked me to come in for an in-person interview. Now, I'm not gonna say the name of this company or their address because that is not a good idea. But I will say that they were based in San Francisco, which again, pretty typical for a marketing company to be based in San Francisco. I mean, it's one of the biggest and most important cities in Northern California. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. Anyone who lives in the Bay Area knows driving in San Francisco sucks. It's just, you're never gonna find parking. Traffic is hell. It just, so I looked and I saw that like their office was actually located very close to a BART station. And for those who don't know, the BART is the Bay Area subway pretty much. And I could basically drive to my local BART station and then take the BART to this stop, and it was like 2 blocks away. So I thought like, okay, perfect, I'll just take the BART. So I did that, and I'm not going to say again where this company is located, but I will say that my stop on the BART was the Montgomery station. So I get off and I do the in-person interview. Again, very easy, asking me like what my ambitions are, what I want to do, like what I was interested in college, you know, like nothing too odd. Something that should have raised a red flag was how the girl who was interviewing me talked so highly of herself, like to the point where it was like, okay, I get it, you claim you're very good at what you do, like okay, cool, but like it was, I don't know, that should have bugged me a little more. But I was just like, you know, whatever. Maybe because I went to music school and I was used to being around egos. So after the interview, I was taken out to the field, and the field was basically walking around downtown San Francisco, going door to door, selling makeup. I don't know how I didn't realize that I had walked into something very not what I was expecting. Like, I don't know how I didn't just suddenly go, wait a minute, this is a scam. Like, this isn't a marketing company. This is a door-to-door sales company. But the way they were like, well, you know, like we do direct marketing and it's so much better than any other and blah, blah, blah. How did I not catch this? Okay. So we go out to the field and we're going door to door to like bakeries and just any business basically, with these little shiny bags full of makeup, being like, hey, and the way this girl would do it and the way all the people at this company would do it was so like, you know, when people are very, very fake and it's basically like, it's so sickly sweet that it's like, it feels like you've eaten too much candy and you just have this like ugh feeling. Like that's what I got from these people, because they just be like, hey love, so I'm doing a promotion, and they talk in that voice too, and they just be like look at this, it's so pretty, like pretty, right? Like check it out. And I can't stand those kinds of people. Okay, anyways. Basically, like working in the field was selling this makeup, and they told me, you know, this is what we do, and you know, we'll be training you the whole time and you'll be learning all these marketing techniques, and after, you know, doing this for this, like after you've done this for this many weeks, like you'll be making this much a week, and after doing it for this many months you'll be making this much, and you can be promoted to be like a lead and then an assistant manager, and then eventually once you reach manager you can be making, you know, like 6 figures a year. And I'm just sitting there like, 6 figures a year, dang, that sounds good. And they're basically just saying like, the harder you work, the more money you're gonna make, which, you know, makes sense, right? the way they sold it was just so easy to fall for, because they made it seem like we have this great company culture, and after work we go out and we hang out and have like our social hour, and we're just a big happy family, la 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 la. I found out that my work hours, my work schedule would be Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. What? I made it very clear from the beginning that I was a musician and that I needed weekends and evenings off for me to do my gigs. And they were like, okay, but you have to realize, how much do you want this? How much do you want to be successful? You have to put some things on the side if you really want to be successful. Honestly, that should have been the straw that broke the camel's back, because once you tell me, oh, just put your music on the side because if you really want to be successful, you have to do this. Like, how did I... A lot of this video is going to be me being like, how did I fall for this? But the thing is, you fall for this. It is so easy for these people to make you fall for this. I decided to take, you know, I was offered the job. I decided to take it. Terrible idea. The next day, I had to get up at 5 a.m. so that I could get to the bar and make it to work by, they wanted me there at 7 so that we could be out on the field at 8. So really it wasn't 8 to 7, it was 7 to 8, honestly, because then after working we'd have to take all of our like inventory and put it away. So ridiculous. The first day so basically like you would go to different cities in the area. So the first day we went to Alameda, which is, you know, honestly not that far from where I live now. The second day we went to Corte Madera, which is north of San Francisco. So Alameda's in the East Bay. Corte Madera is north of San Francisco. I believe it's Marin County. And the third day we went to Cupertino, which is in the South Bay, very close to San Jose. The first day, so when we were in Alameda, I was being trained by this girl who was like under the girl who hired me. MLM vibes, am I right? But okay. So this girl's training me, and so at the time I was 22. This girl was 25. And like when we went out, like basically like we had to take our own car. So like when I told them I had a car, but like I wasn't planning on using it. They were like, oh, okay, but like you're gonna have to use your car eventually. And I'm just like, okay. So this girl, like we went in her car because I was still being trained basically. And you know, we were going in her car. And on our way there, she's just like, so first we had to like count out all our inventory and crap, and then like take in these big freaking plastic storage containers and then take it to her car. And she was just like hyping up her car so much, and I was like, okay. And we get there and she has this really nice Mercedes. Like, it was a nice Mercedes. And she was telling me how before she worked at this job and she was making all this money and was so successful and like money. First she worked at a bank, and like all I remember is that it was a big bank. Like I don't remember if it was Wells Fargo or Bank of America or like, you know, like a big bank with multiple branches nationwide. And she was telling me that she used to work at the bank as a bank manager, where she was making over 100,000 a year, and she saved up her money so that she could buy her nice Mercedes. And I was like, at the time I was like, whoa, like you're so young and you were so like, and you were a bank manager. And she's like, yeah, like I was good at what I did, like no. And then I quit so that I could work here, and I'm making even more. And I was just like, dang, okay. And later that night I told my dad, who works in finance, and he also used to work in banking, and I tell him this, and he's like, how old is this girl? Because, you know, like I told him that, you know, pretty much everyone at this company was very young, and he's like, how old is she? And I'm like, oh, she's 25 and she quit like 2 years ago. And he looks at me, he's like, Gabby, there is no way a 23-year-old could be the manager of a bank. And I'm sitting there like, and I mean, honestly, like really, like I'm 25 now. Could I manage a bank? No. Like what? So that another red flag that I should have noticed and I didn't, because I was looking through the world with rose-colored glasses. the next day we go to Corte Madera, and I'm with, was I with the other girl? No, I was still with this girl. And when I'm in a situation that I am very uncomfortable in, but I'm too scared to get out, and I know this because I experienced this a lot in black belt training when I was younger. Like when I am put into a situation that makes me extremely uncomfortable, but I know I have no way of getting out of it right that second, I develop this huge lump in my throat. Like I'm about to start bawling, but I'm not. And occasionally like tears will fall. Like I will literally like cry a little bit. And with the girl, like I was just like, oh, like my mascara like got in my eye, hold on, and I was like rubbing my eyes, but in reality I was crying because I have severe anxiety and I knew I couldn't get out of the situation, and my body was going into like fight or flight mode. Like it was just like, Gabby, you gotta get out of this, you gotta get out of this, like what are you doing? But I was too scared to just quit when I totally could have. So I dealt with that the whole second day. The third day, oh, I didn't mention at the beginning, so they had you basically like memorize all these like phrases and words, and if you didn't recite it back to them word for word, they'd be like, you know, like you need to take this seriously. Like if you aren't going to memorize this and take this seriously, then I don't need to be training you. And I'm sitting there like, what? So that was another thing that I should have seen as a red flag. The third day, I am now put with this other girl. You'll find out why she's important later. So I'm put with this other girl who was also like on the same team as this other girl who was under like our boss who had another boss, and okay, MLM. And we go to Cupertino. Now I love Cupertino because it's just a very nice area. I love their library. They're also the headquarter city for Apple, which is one of my favorite companies of all time. So I was just excited to be in Cupertino because I'm like, I get to see all the Apple buildings, yay. When I tell you, she parked in the parking lot of one of these Apple buildings. And I'm like, wait a minute, we don't work here. And she's like, oh, it doesn't matter. This girl. Now, I was already annoyed because we were, like, I knew from the first couple of days, we weren't doing, like, yeah, we were doing door-to-door sales, but we were soliciting. We were going into businesses that had no soliciting signs and going in anyways. So when we parked in an Apple parking lot, I got a very bad feeling. I was like, wait a minute. We are not about to do what I think we're about to do. Nope. We went and did it. This girl had us walk into these buildings. They required like key cards to get in. She literally told me to just be quiet and walk behind these Apple employees like we worked there. And then she just had me start going up to these people, these Apple employees who were working on important things. She just wanted me, like first she had me watch her, and she just started going up to these random employees, obviously away from the receptionists because the receptionists would call security on us. And she was just like walking up to these employees and trying to sell them this makeup. And I'm just sitting there like, what are we doing? This girl had us walking into multiple Apple buildings, pretty much harassing these poor Apple employees to get them to buy our crappy makeup. And I'm sitting there like, what the heck is going on? And eventually, like, we get out of the buildings because we were about to get caught. And like I told her, you know, like a few times we were asked to leave by an employee, but not like actual security. And I was like, why aren't we leaving? And she's like, oh, we're not leaving until like someone forcibly kicks us out. And I'm like, I don't want to go to jail. What? So eventually we finally just leave Apple's property, and we're walking along Stevens Creek, which is one of the major streets in Cupertino. And we started like going into like little shopping, like outdoor shopping areas. And she told me to walk along this entire shopping area and not come back until I had sold all my makeup. And I had like 5 bags on me. And I'm sitting there like, should I just walk away and like go to a coffee shop and just call my dad to like come get me. Like at this point I was like, what? Okay, I managed to sell I think like 2 bags of makeup, and then she told me we had to meet up by this time. And then finally I'm like, you know, I didn't sell all my makeup, but at this point, like, I really don't care. I need to figure out how to get out of the situation I put myself into, because this is not what I want to be doing. I feel disgusting. Like, I get there and she's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And like made me feel bad about it. And I was just like, I really don't care at this point. Oh, I forgot to mention her car. Okay, at the beginning of the day, she was also bragging about her car. I don't know what it was with all these people thinking like they were amazing because they had cars. Like, congratulations, so does everyone else. Like, okay. But they were like, this girl was like, I will never forget this for as long as I live. So right as we're walking outside, she's telling me like I just bought my car. I dropped 7 G's on this car. And I'm just like, cool. Like, I'm just sitting there like, oh, that's awesome, like, good for you. And she's like, yeah, like, I saved up and I worked so hard and I dropped 7 G's on this car. And I was like, cool. We get there. Girl, it was a Honda Civic. Like, congratulations. You know, like, I got the girl who was bragging about her Mercedes because, like, dang, good for you. Like, that's, you know, that's a nice car. Girl, she was hyping her car up thinking we were about to step into a freaking Lamborghini. And I see a Honda Civic parked on the street. And I mean, it was brand new and it was very pretty. And don't get me wrong, like, Hondas are great cars, but just the way she made it sound. Like, I get there and I just see like a brand new Honda. I'm like, okay. Of course, my battery's about to die. Now, not only did this girl tell me that, you know, she had just bought this car. She'd bought this car 5 days ago. And she'd had her license for 2 weeks. That should have been the reddest flag of all. So we get into her car. Like, this is, like, you know, we drive down, we do our thing in Cupertino. And so we get back in her car and we have to drive back to the office. And from Cupertino to San Francisco, you can take 280. It's the most direct freeway. And I remember that morning, keep in mind she said this was a brand new car. The side mirrors, the right side mirror, instead of it being up like this, it was like this. Like, it was basically like facing down. Like, the mirror, it was facing the ground. And I remember telling her, like, you should go back to the dealership and have them fix that. Like, if this car's brand new, you know, it shouldn't be doing that. And she's like, yeah, I'll do that later. You know, like, I just don't have the time. Like, oh, of course you don't have the time. You're working 6 days a week, like 13 hours a day. And dealerships are closed on Sundays usually. So the mirror like had me feeling a little uneasy. And so we're just driving, rush hour traffic, of course. You know, where in the Bay Area is rush hour traffic not a thing? Like, come on. We're driving, and because there's 2 of us, we could go in the carpool lane. So we get in the carpool lane, and so we're going, you know, 40, 60 at times. And then I remember specifically because I remember telling her like, oh, hey, like, this is the exit I would take to get home. So we were just passing the 92 and 280 interchange. So for those who don't know, in the Bay Area, 92 takes you either to Half Moon Bay if you go west, or it takes you to like across the bridge and to Hayward if you go east. And so I lived on the eastern side, you know, like I lived on the peninsula at the time, but like I had to take 92 east. And so I was telling her like, oh, hey, like, this is right where I live. And she was like, oh, cool, like, no. And so we passed the 92 interchange and we hit a patch of traffic, which again, totally normal. It was rush hour. So we hit a patch of traffic, and because her right side mirror was broken, instead of just, you know, like when you're driving, you know, like if you know how to drive, you'll be looking at your side mirrors, you'll look at your rear view mirror, and then you'll be looking ahead, obviously. So this girl, instead of, you know, like using her eyes, she's physically like moving her head to do this. And how I ignored this on the first trip, I don't know. This whole video is me just ignoring red flags. So she's driving and I'm just like, okay. We start hitting traffic that is slowing down to 0. And this girl, instead of looking ahead, here's the other thing, you know, you're supposed to be constantly, you know, looking at where you are because things can change in an instant. This girl would basically just be like looking ahead, and then she'd look this way, and then she'd look, and then she'd look. She was like driving like this, and she was looking to the right because the side mirror was broken. She's like this. I was looking at my phone because I was trying to see, like, she was trying to check like how long it would take for us to get back, like how long this traffic patch would last. So I'm on my phone, she's like this, and I feel my whole body move forward. I feel airbags go off in my face. I hear cars honking, and basically like my vision goes black for a few seconds. This girl, because she'd been looking to the right for so long, she didn't realize that the car in front of us had come to a complete stop. We were going at least 40, and we rear-ended this car. The first thing I realized when I came to was this girl had grabbed my hand, my left hand, and she was like, "Oh my goodness, sweetie, are you okay?" And like, it sounded genuine, honestly, and I was just like, "Yeah, are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think so." And I realized I can't feel my nose, and I'm just like, oh my god, my nose is shattered, my nose is broken, I'm gonna need nose surgery, oh my god. Like, I couldn't feel my nose. So I take my right hand and I feel my nose, and I realize it isn't broken, it's all in place. Awesome, my nose isn't broken. I look around, and my phone had been, like, I attached it to my portable charger. My portable charger is in pieces, it's broken, it's done, but my phone survived. Thank you, Apple, for creating great phones, because my iPhone was fine. We, like, obviously the cars came to a complete stop because they collided. The woman in front of us that we'd hit, she moved to the median because we were in the left lane, so we couldn't move to the shoulder because we'd have to cut across too many cars. And at this point, because there'd just been an accident, everyone was like, "Ooh," just staring, because that's what Californians do, is we rubberneck like crazy. And this girl, instead of driving her car to the median, she just leaves it, and we get out of the car. And I remember in that moment, like, my instinct told me, grab your things, grab your bag. It was in the back seat. Like, grab your bag, grab all your stuff, and get out of the car. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to my gut because I've ignored it all these days. And we get out, and then there's these people behind us because she left her car in the lane. There's people behind us being like, "Move your car, like, are you stupid, like, move your car." And the car was leaking some sort of fluid, and I was terrified that it was something flammable and that the car was gonna go up in flames. So I wasn't getting anywhere near that car. Now, it turns out it was just like antifreeze or something that was leaking. Like, it wasn't anything dangerous. And luckily, thank you, a good Samaritan got out of her car and she moved our car to the median, and so people could keep moving. And I remember someone called 911. I don't know if it was me. I know the girl didn't want to. Maybe it was the lady we hit, who, by the way, all our injuries were fairly minor. The lady we hit had the worst injuries. She basically had like really bad whiplash, and on top of that, she was a nurse. So it was just like, yikes. But like, she was well enough to, you know, like, exchange info and everything. So I was like, okay, you know, at least we're figuring this out. I call my dad to come get me because obviously, since I'd taken the BART to the office, I didn't have like my car waiting for me or anything. You know, I could just be picked up. And at this point, I just wanted to get far away from these people. I'd just be like, that's it. I got scammed by an entry-level marketing company and it almost killed me. So at this point, I'm just like, ugh. So I call my dad. He picks up, thank goodness, and he was in San Jose, so he had to take 280 with traffic now, thanks to our accident. And eventually he reached us. He got to us like before the police did. And so my dad arrives, and, you know, he asks me if I'm okay, and I'm like, I think I'm okay, but I don't feel great. And I was starting to have like some feelings of shock. I was starting to get dizzy. My vision was getting like kind of going in and out. I wasn't feeling too good. And the girl She had like a nasty gash on her hand. Like, I guess like when the airbag went off, it cut her hand. But other than that, she claimed she was fine. And, you know, eventually CHP, California Highway Patrol, shows up, and I thought he was gonna write a police report for my coworker and the woman we hit, but I guess that didn't happen, because a few days later when I went to get a copy of this report for insurance purposes, you'll later hear about that, there was no report. Interesting. But, you know, the police officer gets there and he asks if we need an ambulance, and I'm like, I don't know, I might, I'm not feeling too good. And the girl is like, no, 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 like, we don't need an ambulance. And I'm looking at this girl like, excuse you, speak for yourself. And the officer's like, you know what, like, all your injuries seem to be pretty minor, and, you know, it's gonna take a while for an ambulance to get here, and it's gonna be really expensive, so, you know, let's just not call an ambulance. And so my dad was like, okay, well, Gabby, I'm taking you to urgent care. And I was like, okay. So I tell this girl bye. I call our boss, like the girl in charge of us, MLM, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, like, when do you think you can get back to the office? And I'm like, I'm on my way to urgent care. And she's like, oh, okay, feel better, like, we'll see you tomorrow. And I'm just like, okay. And I hang up, because I'm just like, what? And I tell my dad, and he's like, what is wrong with these people? And I'm like, I don't know. We get to urgent care, and it's at the clinic that I go to for all of my appointments and everything. And I check in, they see me, and they start noticing that I'm starting to have trouble staying conscious. And they're like, you need to go to the emergency room. Like, you could have some internal stuff going on. You may have a concussion. Like, you need to go to the emergency room. And so my dad was like, okay, I'll drive her. And they're like, no, she has to go in an ambulance. And my dad's like, the hospital's literally like 2 miles that way. Like, I can take her. It'll be faster. And they're like, no, like, protocol says we have to call an ambulance. And I'm just like, okay. So they put me on this, like, you know those boards they like put you in when you have to go to the ER, you know, like those. Like, they put me on one of those. Those things are so uncomfortable. I had to lay on that thing for an hour because they made such a big deal about me needing to go in an ambulance. They made me wait an hour for this ambulance. My dad could have taken me in that time. Like, are you kidding me? So finally, the ambulance finally comes. They put me in this, like, what's it called? Like, that neck brace thing. So I'm just like, just completely immobile at this point and in a lot of pain because the whiplash and everything is finally starting to hit me because the adrenaline's wearing off. And so they put me in the ambulance, and then boom, we go to the ER, which, I mean, I don't care about saying the name of the hospital. We went to Stanford, which is interesting because I was born at Stanford Hospital. So it's like, wow, I was born here and I might die here. So, so we get to Stanford and they wheel me in, and they ask me like typical things like, what's your first and last name? What's your date of birth? And then they ask me, who's the president of the United States right now? And I remember looking at the doctor who asked me this, because keep in mind it was 2017. So yeah, I look at this guy and I'm like, don't make me say it. And then everyone just starts laughing. They're like, okay, she's okay, like, she's good, she's good. So they start checking me out, and so far, like, nothing's broken, nothing seems to be out of place, but I had a lot of pain in my abdomen and in my upper back and neck. So they were like, okay, so we don't feel anything out of place, like, that all seems to be fine, but we do want you to have some testing done. So actually, I think I wrote down what they had to do to me. Oh, also, I was wearing like one of my really nice shirts because to work at this freaking company, we had to dress like to the nines basically. So I was wearing one of my nicest shirts. I loved this shirt, and they had to cut it off me at the hospital with the shears, because they couldn't, like, it couldn't unbutton to like take it off, and they couldn't pull it over my head because they didn't know if I had like spine damage. So they had to cut it, and I was really bummed because I loved that shirt. So I had to spend the night in the ER also. So my dad took me, right? I called my mom like 5 times. She didn't pick up, and I had joked with her, like this was just a running joke in the past that, you know, my mom never answers to her phone. And I told her, one day I'm gonna get into a really bad car accident and I'm gonna have to go to the ER and you're gonna find out last because you never pick up your phone. That happened. Like, I remember I called my dad, who picked up and came to get me. I called my brother. I called my grandmother. I called my grandfather. I called my aunt. And they all found out before my mom did. They were like, yeah, like, we'll try to get a hold of her. Oh my God, like, And my mom found out last because her mom, her dad, her sister, and her son, and her ex-husband all had to call her because she wouldn't pick up her phone. But anyways, my mom eventually got to the hospital and she ended up spending the night with me in the ER. Like, they had like 2 beds basically, so I was in the like hospital bed and she was in the other one. They did a contrast MRI, which is where they like inject you with that stuff that like creates a contrast so they can see things. And they were like, yeah, you're gonna feel like you peed yourself. And I was like, what? I literally felt like I'd peed myself. It was very uncomfortable. So they did that and they sent me home the next day. They were like, you know, we did these tests, but you seem to be fine. You seem to be, at least you seem to be good to go home. So I was like, okay. And I felt okay enough to go home. So they were basically like, take it easy. Like, don't do any exercise. Don't do anything more than basically like getting up and walking around. Like, you need to rest, you need to recover, you have some bruising on your abdomen and you have whiplash, so you're going to be very sore for the next few days. And I think they prescribed me like codeine, or Tylenol with codeine, not just straight codeine, Tylenol with codeine. So I go home, and then the next few days when I'm feeling better, and keep in mind, like, I just did not show up to work because I was like, I was in an accident, I need time to recover. And I told them that. They were like, okay, well, let us know when you can come back. And I'm like, okay. We go to the CHP office that was closest to me and we find out that there was no police report ever filed. So I'm like, okay, so there's no record that this happened basically. And they're like, no, there's not. And I'm like, what? And that just did not sit right with me. So I texted my coworker and was like, hey, can I have your insurance info? Because since I spent the night in the hospital, I'm gonna have all these massive hospital bills. And since, you know, you caused the accident, your insurance needs to cover that. This girl had the nerve to text me back and say, I don't feel comfortable sharing my insurance info with you. You almost killed me. You're gonna give me your insurance info. And like, I remember like my dad was with me when I got this text from her and he was like, nah, you text her back and tell her to give you that info right now, or we're sending a lawyer after her. And like, I didn't know how we were gonna do that, but my parents were gonna figure it out somehow. But like, I texted her back and was like, I need this insurance info or I'll have to take legal action against you. And she's like, okay, okay. And then she just sends me all the info. I called her insurance company and the lady was like super sweet, you know, super like, you know, hi, like, how can I help you? And like, I tell her like, I was in an accident with your client. And she's like, oh, yeah, we're already working that out. And I'm like, you are? And she's like, yeah, like, you know, you were the one hit, right? And I'm like, no, I was the passenger. And she's like, wait, but it was just this girl and the person she hit. She didn't mention a passenger. And I'm like, oh, she didn't mention a passenger? Well, I was in the car with her. I had to go to the emergency room and had multiple tests done on me because they thought I had, you know, internal injuries and I have whiplash. I can give you all of my information and I have proof that I was her passenger. The CHP officer could vouch for me, as could the lady we hit. And she was like, oh crap. Like, she didn't say that obviously, but I could tell she was like, oh my God. So, because basically like what this girl tried to do was fraud, like by leaving me out of this. So I give her all my information. They're like, okay, like, we're gonna start working this out. And then I get my hospital bill from Stanford. Y'all, it was $80,000. And I was like, nope, I'm not paying a penny of that. Nope. So I send it to the insurance lady. She's like, okay, like, we'll take care of it. I'm like, okay, you better. About a week passes and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going back to this scam of a company. This isn't worth it. Screw this. So I asked my dad to take me into San Francisco so that I can go to their office and formally quit, and also pick up my check because they owed me money because I did work for 3 days. So, and also I had been guaranteed $100 a day starting out. So I was like, okay. So I'm sitting there expecting a $300 check, or 300 minus taxes. So I walk in, no one asked me if I was okay. They were just like, oh, like there you are, like we haven't seen you in a while. And I'm like, of course you haven't, because I've been recovering from a car accident that your employee almost killed me in. Like, okay. Ugh. Like literally no one asked me if I was okay. Like they were all just like, oh, there you are. I'm like, ah. So I go to the HR person and she's like, yeah, like how are you feeling? Like at least like she asked me how I was feeling. You know, I tell her like, yeah, like I'm doing okay, but I'm just letting you know like I'm gonna quit because like, you know, this is really far for me, and you know, this isn't a good fit for me. She's like, oh, okay, well thanks for letting us know. And then she gives me my check. That check was $80. Okay, I decided not to fight it because I was just like, you know what? There are battles I can fight. This is not one that's worth my energy. So I just took my $80 and I left. And my dad and I both just sat in the car for a second and we were like, you know, this is a pretty good life lesson. But it kind of sucks that you had to almost die. Then a few weeks later, I find out that my hospital bill was paid in full, and I also got a settlement because this girl almost killed me and lied to her insurance company about it. So yeah, this is a really long video. If you watched this whole thing, thank you so much. It still like blows my mind that this actually happened. But you know what? I learned my lesson. When you apply to a job and it just sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If you're a recent high school or college graduate and you are looking for a job that is an entry-level job, please watch out for these kinds of scams, because they, like the job poster, the company, they will make it sound like it's this amazing opportunity that you don't need any experience, that you just need to be a recent high school or college graduate. First of all, there's a big difference between jobs for someone who has a high school diploma and jobs for someone who has an associate's or a bachelor's or a master's. So the fact that like this big range of people for an entry-level position, like that in itself doesn't make sense. So, you know, watch out for these red flags. They're gonna use keywords and like this really appealing language. But the one thing I would recommend the most is, if you find one of these jobs that just sounds so amazing, look up the company. Look up reviews of this company. If I had done that, I would have found out that this company is known for soliciting, for harassing people on the street to buy their stupid makeup, or the other thing they would sell was like tickets to like Golden State Warriors games and other sports games. I would have known that this company was not a company looking to train people in marketing, but just to sell this crap. Please do your research when you're applying to jobs. Like, please. I should have known better, honestly. The fact that I was a college graduate, I should have known better. I shouldn't have fallen for this, but I did. And I don't want anyone else to fall for this. I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. These feelings of being put into such an uncomfortable situation of forcing yourself onto people to have them buy these products that are terrible quality. You know, if I wanted to sell makeup, I would have applied for a job at Sephora or Ulta, because at least I would be selling brands that I know personally and love personally. Instead, I was selling this crap that was probably manufactured in a sweatshop. And then the whole thing about my coworker literally almost killing me. I mean, obviously that was, you know, nothing, it doesn't have anything to do with the company, but it does say a lot that, you know, we weren't provided company vehicles, we had to use our own vehicles, and the fact that this girl had literally had her license for 2 weeks, and the company was like, yeah, you can drive people. Like, I didn't start driving people other than driving with my parents or my little brother. I didn't start driving like friends or anyone else. I think it was like 6 months after I got my license. 2 weeks? Really?
Hey, editing Gabby here. I just want to add that I got my license at 17, and in the state of California, you can't drive anyone outside of, I think it's your parents or siblings until 6 months after you've had your license. But in this case, the girl had gotten her license. I think she was like 22, 23. She was about my age, and it's different when you're 18 or older and you get your license in California. But the point still stands that she'd only had her license for 2 weeks, and that's really not a long time, whether you're a teenager or an adult, at least in my opinion.
Like, it's just, there were so many things that went wrong. And, just like, now I'm just getting upset. Like, this is ridiculous. The bottom line is, I learned my lesson. It was a very hard lesson, but I learned it. And I decided to tell this extremely long story so that anyone watching this, you don't fall for it and you can warn people. And also, something I've realized is with the pandemic going on, these companies are preying on people even more. So please, please be careful. Please do your due diligence, do your research. If your gut is telling you something is not right, please listen to your gut. I wish I had. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to hear more stories from me, I'm also a musician and I post a lot of my music and things related to that. I also vlog. Please subscribe. I would love to have you join this lovely community of people. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!